This is Tyler Fetter's interview of David McKinnin.
He's being,
When did you join the military?
they called me for draft in September of 1942.
What branch did you join?
I went in as a general draft, but I was finally assigned to the 25th Airways Transportation. You know,
What made you join? Guess that's
Uncle Sam said, I want you.
what for training did you receive?
What?
What for training did you receive?
What training?
Like training, like just basic training?
Well, when they drafted me, they put me out here at Middletown for introductory questions, and aptitude tests. Tell me what I was qualified for.
And then did you have to go through like 6 weeks of basic training,
After
like they
that,
do
yes.
today?
Mm-hmm.
What was your main purpose in the military?
Get out. I mean, I was called, and I did what I had to do, and waiting for the day to go home.
What theater did you go to into?
Eventually, I got into CBI, commonly known as the China-Burma India Theater,
Where were you based at?
based at two places. One place was Yankai, and then after 6 months, we were transferred to a place called Chanyi in the Yunnan province of China. They transported me into that base by transporting me by boat over the Atlantic, South Atlantic, up the Indian Ocean to Bombay, and then railroad train across India to a place called Shabwa along the Brahmaputra River. Took me up the river 3 days on a riverboat, and threw me over the hump, what was called the hump, and based me at Chanyi.
What was your main job over in the Yunnan province?
My main job basically was a serviceman. I mean, like gas station serviceman. I made sure it was accountable for enough fuel to get back over the hump, qualification for the aircraft to take the hump ride, such as a low tire or low on gas or a loose bolt in the ailerons or whatever the pilot may check in his flight log before he was sent back.
What type of vehicles did you work on?
Well, our working crew in that time was what they call Jeeps, 6x6s, and a weapons carrier. And of course, we had a whole contingency of motorcycles of various types, Harley 74s, we would call. And then, of course, the officers had their own private Jeep for basic part. The transportation trucks, transportation was done mostly by Chinese, and they used old beat-up Studebakers and international flatbeds to haul the stuff around that we brought into China.
What other jobs did you do, like special jobs that you didn't do every day?
Well, after I was in there a while, I was transferred to the officers, not the officers, but the flight office, and sat at a desk and kept track of incoming and outgoing planes, kept track of what time they arrived, what time they were loaded or unloaded, and what time it took to turn them around. And I had almost a 3x5 chart in front of me. At one time, I was capable of copying down 5 different aircraft numbers and their destination and times. While I was writing them down, he was broadcasting over what they call a walkie-talkie box, like you had in the old offices. He'd rattle them off and I'd write them down. Put the time they arrived, time they loaded, who the pilots were, and so on.
Did you see a lot of action while you were over there?
No, thank God for that. Our airfield was called on alert several times. Red ball alert. They gave 3 balls, yellow, blue, and red. Nobody was around to put the red ball up. It was all took for the slip trenches. But we got bombed twice. But when everybody was up in the hills or in the slip trenches, the bombs went harmlessly down the runway. And only once did a vehicle get involved, and a crew that they were bringing back from the ship that had just landed, the pilot got his skull blown off. He was the only casualty through that kind of action. We've had other fatalities from planes crashing in the mountains and everything else, but it wasn't every day, every 2 hours or every 3 hours or anything like that.
Did you have much downtime? Like
Yeah.
leave?
Well, I had a couple weeks in transition. I had a week or so before I went over. But then the 2.5, 3 years I was over there, I didn't get any until I came home. And they gave me a 30-day leave because they didn't want to take me and discharge me, because that's what I was in the transition of being discharged. So in basic training, we had almost every weekend off. They go to school 5 days a week, and that was it.
What occurred that made you leave the war?
I can remember that day. They had a rotation schedule for the time you were over there, were in action. My points, along with, there was 25 of us went over at one time, and only about 6 of us had qualified for the points. So we were all set to go home. We had our tickets, our papers, and the airplane came in to pick us up. Meanwhile, the negotiations were Pearl Harbor, and Japan was being negotiated. So they had speakers set around the field, so anybody on the field could hear the final clue, to surrender. So we were there waiting for the 14th Air Force Transportation Group, with the little C-47 aircraft, to take us from our field to Kunming to transport to an over-the-hump plane, which is a bigger one. So we were there waiting for our they could come over, attention, and I hear this, Pearl Harbor, not Pearl Harbor, but Japan surrendered, normal surrender thing. And we turned to the pilot, and the guy holding this as a group, he said, get us off the ground before they keep us here for occupation forces. They had no thought about doing that. So we took off then, and next 4 days I was on my way home.
What did you do after the war?
Hunted around for a job. Had no problem. Went into mechanics. Then went into industry. And got out of industry because, pay raises and everything else. And I ended up for the better part of my career working as a lawn and garden tractor man, repairman. I worked on Oldsmobiles, Chevrolets, Toyotas, not Toyotas, but Mercedes-Benz. And even when the first Volkswagen was sent over here, one of our buddies had one. He used to kid the daylights out of it.
How do you feel about World War II now?
It was a necessary evil. We were, I don't know whether to say coerced or not, but we kept our fingers clean from the Germany war until the Japs stumped on it. And then it was a survival fit. You know what I mean? We joined with Britain, had the D-Day and everything else. But our country here, if you read back in history, I got some notifications in there when some people, even email, your computer will bring you up that the number of aircraft we used, the number that was produced and shipped over. We not only shipped our boys aircraft, we were shipping England aircraft. Russia was buying aircraft from us. Maybe through Canada, but one of their big things from us was the Bel Air Cobra. That was an aircraft, fighter aircraft that had a cannon in its nose. And Russians would come up and pick them up and take them off and fly them over.
Would you have done it again if you could?
If I could?
Yeah.
No. I would if I had to.
Yeah. Did you keep in contact with any of your friends you made in the war?
Very laxed on that. I had no idea. I do know where one of the buddies I had, he was from a town like Harleysville and Halifax. Halifax and Middleburg are. He was in Harleysville and I was in Amber. And his parents kept in contact with my parents because they were next door neighbors. He came in with the same group, some 30 or 35 from our, what, Ward 5 or something I call it. And I have 2 buddies, close buddies. One of them is still around, but he wasn't in with me in the service. We picked up after the service. Here he comes. Both of you are here now. I got 2 of you. Sorry about that. Huh?
These are some of the things that David brought back home with him or sent home to his wife
And family.
and family.
I want. Let's see. That'll be better. There. How's that?
That's good. And you want to explain them?
My right hand is a Christmas card, dated. Let me look at it here to make sure. APO of 1940. What? Oh, sorry, folks. I'll have to look at another date. But this is made for the Army for personnel to send letters home to folks that they wouldn't have such a big bulk. They'd write the letter, they'd center it, and approve, they'd photograph it and send it in the smaller envelope. The center one is a regular communication note, and the one on my left hand is a Christmas card. All done in sometime near between the year of 40 and 43. I have to look here to give you information. Let's see. I thought there was a date on it. Wait a minute. Sorry, but I guess there is no date on it.
So what is that one there? Mother's Day greeting.
This one is a Mother's Day greeting to my mother-in-law. I didn't have the one from my mother. Because at the time my wife was with my mother-in-law, so that's where the mail went.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else?
Okay.
Whoop. We're going to have to do a lot of editing. And as you can see, they're all the same size, except at different angles. Now the third one I'm showing you is a, this is one to Mom, my mother-in-law again, for just a correspondence. While writing's atrocious, you'd have to have a Chinese to cipher it. That it?
And you said that was like the emails are today.
Well, it's similar to communications. You call them email because it goes through the computer. These are V-mail because they shorthand them victory letters. They photographed them for you. The Army did the photographing and the mailing. And in my travels, if you are interested, this is a chance of a Chinese embroidery, and I can attest to the fact that this piece of equipment or material is stained because of dampness. It's been in a storage box, and it's over 40 years old. Because I was in the service from 42 to 43, 41 to 43, and I didn't get it till after I was over there, and I come home in 43, so that makes it well over 80 years old. Not 80. Yeah, 80. 60, I'm sorry. That's...
Now what was something like that used for?
This is, well, I guess you call them bandanas or a tablecloth or a throw mat. It was done on the fabric, and then we sent it home, and they did what they ever had to do for them. I do have one in the house that's framed and mounted, a bird. Might be able to show you that one, if the dog don't tear everybody apart, if you got time to show me. And overseas, I expected to come home and make like a daddy. This is what remains of a bassinet set that I sent home. The cape and the shawl were too small for my son or my daughter when they were born. The Chinese had no idea how size to make them. It's all done in China, in the Yunnan province is where I bought them. But what they had, I don't know. This, that's my discharge. This is patches they issued to us to wear if we were captured or taken prisoner or got lost in the jungles of Burma. Fortunately, I never got too far from the airfield, so I didn't have to worry.
And what would you do? Where would you wear it?
On the shoulder patch of your tea jacket, they call it, or your dungarees or uniform. Mostly on your jackets, because if you're out in the woods for anything, or out in the field for anything, you'll be full with uniform. What they say in China, I don't know. Can't tell you. Except that I'm an American soldier, they'd appreciate it if they treat us as such. This is an old navigating thing I had. And here's some little embroidered handkerchiefs for the Malay. Little bit square patches of, what they make them out of? Parachute silk. Can you get it?
Mm-hmm.
That's got a stain on it. I don't see anybody using one of them today with antihistamines. And here we are. This one here dates itself. I got this just before I come in. That's it, 1945.
Mm-hmm.
That it?
Mm-hmm.
My memorabilia chief.
Yeah.
Things like that. No.
Nope. I like David.
This is a kerchief like everybody used to wear, you know. The girls threw it over the back of their head and so on. There's a big bumblebee. And needless to say, it's creased and folded because I think it's been in that box for 40 years.
60.
60.
Oh yes. This is a box they put together in the machine shop while working for an airplane to be prepared. I got something to do with the soldering in tin boxes. I even had a lid on it, but the hinges rusted off back there. This is a tender, legal tender. What that is? Oh, that's Oregon trip. You say, I got $20,000 to $30,000 worth of Chinese money here. It isn't worth a nickel. See, that's what he carried around. That's some of the newer stuff. That's still over 6 years old. Good. I got these in China, and I changed them in. You go down there with a wad of thing like that in your pocket, put it in your pocket, go into a diner or restaurant, get a chicken dinner. They tell you how much, you pull your wad out and hand it to him. Because a chicken dinner will be $2,100 in Chinese money, which would amount to about $3 in American money. And as you can see, if you look at them, you'll find that they're printed in all different styles. And me thinks that every province, not like the United States, but every province has their own bill. Yunnan, Changi, Hawaii, or whatever it might be. And all these years now, I still don't know what China's broke up into. I think some of the towns I was in was changed. The big town we had was Kutsing. That was a big air base there. And that was where our 3-day passes would take us if we wanted to go. I did get the privilege of flying into Chongming once with a crew to drop off some material and supplies. Anything else I can
Did you
help
say you had your discharge papers there?
No.
Blue pamphlet thing going
That's
on. I'm a
Here, David.
yeah. Oh, this is a star from the church service, from the Methodist. No, this is from the St. Paul's Reformed Church. No, Calvary Methodist Church. I'm sorry. Good boy. 1947. They took the stars off the flags and gave it to me.
For what? What was it?
Discharge.
Oh, for your discharge.
1947. Calvary Methodist Church, that would be Ambler, Pennsylvania. I was drafted in the Ambler draft board. I was born and raised in Ambler. They got tired of me and threw me out. That's why I'm here. That it? Huh?
That's a
I'm
penny.
gonna put this here so it don't go nowhere.
Yeah. Those email letters go in this thing. That's the rules I had to go by. Where's my email letter?
On the,
This is what they call a short snorter. When
What?
you say short snorter, almost anybody that's in the Army would know what that is, Air Force. Because what they do is fields you visit or people come in who sign the bill for you. Sign the bill for you, and you keep it as you met those fellows or other fellows that were with you. Some of the names here. Charlie Schistler, he's gone now, but he was my bid buddy. He's from Hardersville, PA. Patrick J. Stump, he was from Nebraska. David City, Nebraska. He was a former used car salesman. That's about it. Skolnick, he was from Philadelphia. Martin Skolnick. Santos Sabatano was from New York City. They were all fellows that were in my outfit. Frederick Kirshner, he was from Drums, PA. That's only up the road here a piece. Now those fellows I can keep in contact with if I get around to looking them up. One fellow, Sabatano, I think he passed on recently. Haven't heard. I can't read the rest of them again. Leslie Miller, I heard from him. Leslie Miller was from Ashton in Nebraska, is it? Oklahoma. He went into the ministry somehow, and he did go back to our outfit and see what the old village looked like on a sabbatical tour, I guess, something like that. And he told me that. I got in contact with him once in the last 4 years. I'm very slow at writing. And if anybody wants my comment, I can't kick, can't complain. Service I had was interrupting my life, but it came back. And now the service is doing great by me. I can't argue about that either. If it wasn't for the DAV or the Veterans Administration helped me out, I must admit that I would not be able to sit like I'm sitting now. That is, I wouldn't be able to keep it up. Fortunately, over the years, I'd get enough to keep myself above water. Now I don't need a life preserver yet. And I thank the Lord for that.
There you go.
Do what I was told. I
do you
was
know
never,
how to take a picture?
never thrown in a brig. I was never held over for being drunkenness in the street. Or didn't have any. In fact, one of my buddies, a guy named Schistler, he not Schistler, but the fellow from Texas. He claims I got my corporal stripe because I was cleaning a shotgun when the lieutenant come up and investigate our rest camp, they call it. You could have 2 or 3 days in the rest camp to go hunting.
R&R.
Yeah.
David, I'm going to take a still picture of you, so if you want to put your head back and your glasses up.
I don't look any better for that.
Are you going to salute?
Oh, me?
Ted Hunt!
You'd have me going to do quick step march?
There you go.